Hey, before we get going today, I wanted to give you a heads up. Before you know it, Halloween's going to be here, and then Thanksgiving, and then Christmas, and then New Year's. And then we're going to have to worry about, how do I pay for all this holiday spending? Let's go ahead and make a New Year's resolutions list. And let me go ahead and guess. Last year and every year before that, 2 of your resolutions were pay some debt off, save some money. I can help you do both of those. Check both of the boxes at savewithconrad.com. And how's this for starters? No house payments until next year. I mean, let's face it, your single biggest bill, that's your house payment. Well, if you got to pocket that cash for both November and December, wouldn't that make the holiday season just a whole heck of a lot easier? Of course it would. And let me also talk to you if you've got credit card debt. Man, you know you can do better than that. What's your rate on that credit card right now? 28%, 31%? You know those interest rates are too high, and you know you can do better. Not only that, did you know that the interest you pay on those credit cards is not only sky high, it's also not tax deductible, whereas the interest you pay on your mortgage is tax deductible. So if you could get a better rate, a greater tax deduction, skip your next 2 house payments, and come next year, a lower monthly payment, what are you waiting for? We're routinely helping our listeners save $5, $6, $7, even $800 a month. But how much can you save? It's free to find out right now at savewithconrad.com. And I want to give you a heads up, we're not a bank or a credit union. We're not going to say no and treat you like a number and show you the door. We're going to say not yet, but here's how. You need a plan. You need a friend in the mortgage business. And that's me. Let my family help your family at savewithconrad.com. It's no cost, no obligation. And if we can't save you some cash, we won't waste your time. Get a quick quote. You'll be glad you did. SaveWithConrad.com.
NMLS number 2129, Equal Housing Lender.
SaveWithConrad.com. Hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and you're listening to Grillin' JR with the voice of professional wrestling, Mr. Jim Ross. Jim, how are you, man?
I'm good. You know, being the voice of wrestling is kind of like being the skinniest kid at fat camp. I don't know what that means. And did you notice I straightened my sign up? It's not leaning anymore.
Oh, how about that? The lean is over, but business is still about to pick up. You can pick up that book autographed at jrsbbq.com. That sauce is so good, it'll have you leaning. Man, it's good stuff. I don't know if you've had the all-purpose seasoning, but it's a go-to at my house. You can get action figures, books, trading cards, and all the sauces you can shake a stick at jrsbbq.com.
And looking costs nothing.
Yeah, I love that.
Just go look your little heart out, and it didn't cost you a damn dime.
Well, we're going to be taking a look at a pretty important pay-per-view. Yes, we're finally going to talk about the entire card of No Mercy 1999 and all the news and notes that surround it. And you might be asking yourself, is that one of the most important tag matches of all time? Well, yes, it is. Is that when Jeff Jarrett walked out on WWE? Well, yes, it is. We're going to be covering all that and more. But before we get started, Jim, we're just like 3 weeks away from AEW's next pay-per-view, Full Gear. I'm pumped about this. It feels like AEW always delivers on pay-per-view. Of course, tickets are on sale now, and you can go snag yours at AEWTIX.com. But man, these pay-per-view cards, it feels like they always deliver. We've got a handful of matches already announced. One I know I can't wait for. Jay White and Hangman Adam Page. Chemistry is important, and it feels like those guys have it for days, right?
Yeah, they're both excellent at what they do. They conform the situation to their game, and it generally works out pretty well. 2 great hands. It just seems like sometimes we forget some of these cats and don't remember how good they are. And certainly those 2 guys you mentioned are excellent. They're big time. So, yeah, it's going to be good. We've been trying to get this damn show done for a month. Seems like. But what the fuck?
We're also going to find out, is it going to be MJF versus Adam Cole or Roderick Strong? Stay tuned for that. Of course, we're recording on Wednesday, just hours before AEW Dynamite. So you may have some more updated information than we do. But man, the match that everybody's talking about when it comes to Full Gear, the social media sensation Big Boom AJ, along with his son Big Justice, are going to be stepping into an AEW ring to take on QT Marshall. It's going down at Full Gear, Jim. How about that?
Oh, are you kidding? That's what I was wanting to hear.
Hell yeah.
And what about this Rizzo guy?
Well,
Come on, the Rizzler. What's his purpose in life?
if we got to find out, is the Rizzler booked? Damn it, JR wants to know. Is the Rizzler coming to Full Gear? I know JR is going to be there. You should be too. Tickets on sale now. AEWTIX.com. Will you be starstruck, Jim, getting a photo with the Rizzler? If he's there, you're going to have to get a picture, right?
Yeah, I need a selfie. I might even make it my homepage or whatever you call it. But yeah, that's those guys are making quite the name for themselves. Conrad Next, trading cards, action figures. Should work out pretty well.
Well, I'm going to tell you, if the Rizzler was here, I think I can speak on his behalf. The all-purpose seasoning would get a big boom. Just saying. JR'sBBQ.com. Jim, it's been fun talking about, the surrounding time. I mean, you and I even caught up a little bit before we clicked record today. I mean, October of 99, there's so much crazy stuff happening here. As a reminder, Gorilla Monsoon has passed away. Droz has suffered a terrible tragedy. He's now going to be paralyzed for the rest of his life. Vince Russo has left the WWE and gone to WCW. We're going to be going full time with a new SmackDown show. We're thinking about selling the Debbie Reynolds Hotel. We're about to go public, and that's a huge deal for the company to have an IPO.
$160 million.
All of this is happening at the same time. I remember that.
What's that? I'm sorry.
No, I'm just saying it's a crazy time for all of this to be happening. Oh, in addition to, we're going to run some doggone shows. Yeah, I know you need a head writer. Yeah, I know some of your guys are out. Yeah, I know. Oh, by the way, the Intercontinental Champion, his contract's going to expire. This is just got to be one of the more stressful times. Yeah.
It was heartbreaking. Well, it was awkward. To me, it was awkward. The whole Jeff Jarrett thing was awkward.
Yeah.
And it's funny, some people might assume that good old JR and Jeff Jarrett don't get along, which is not true.
Right.
We get along fine. That was just a course of doing business and the decisions he felt he needed to make. So, he got a lot of money out of it. And, but it was very uncomfortable. And that's where my staffing should, and now that wouldn't happen because they've got a big staff that can manage all these things and not one guy that's broadcasting and doing pay-per-views and doing weekly TV, payroll, all that stuff. So anyhow, those are some challenging times for this old Okie.
It's crazy to think just days ahead of the pay-per-view, Wade Keller would write this: Jeff Jarrett's contract with the WWF expires this weekend. If he's not on the pay-per-view to wrestle China, expect him to show up on Nitro the next night. If he does wrestle at the pay-per-view, that doesn't necessarily mean he's staying in the WWE, because the pay-per-view might be his final night in the company before jumping to WCW. There's no word as of the deadline which direction he's leaning. Jarrett left WCW 2 years ago and debuted on the October 20th Raw with a controversial interview. It does feel like he never really, like that opening interview 2 years prior in 1997, where he said something along the lines of, "You're ripping off the Bible to put money in your pocket. And when you and I hook up, it's going to be your judgment day." Something along those lines leads Austin to confronting Jarrett backstage immediately, saying something like, "You're messing with my merch money." Was JR, is JR's opinion that Jeff Jarrett's run from 97 to 99, he sort of accidentally put a glass ceiling on his upward mobility with that promo in 97?
I think he did. He alienated a lot of people, and he wasn't hot. That's the thing about it. His timing was not great as it worked out. Now I'm sure he got a nice financial deal from WCW, but he was never going to be the answer. Jeff is we're in the World Series time. Jeff was a middle infielder, hitting about 7th or 8th. So he's not going to make a huge difference in the perception and the pecking order. a hell of a hand. He's still a hell of a hand. He's one of the best in-ring performers that AEW has. So it just was bad timing, bad decisions. I should not have let it get to that point, but I did, unfortunately. But he wanted to leave. What do you do, Conrad, when you got somebody that works for you that wants to leave? It's hard to make that decision. It's really daunting. They want to go. So how do we help them go? And we helped him go with an expensive mistake.
Were you having trouble getting him to renew before? Did you know the writing was on the wall when Russo gives you notice? When did you realize, we might have a problem? Is it that day?
I don't know if it's that day or not. Some people have a higher opinion of just in-ring work than I do. I think he's a hell of a hand. Really a solid, fundamentally sound hand that can have the proverbial good match with about anybody.
Right.
But bad decisions were made there, I think. But Jeff didn't have any leverage except that money. That one transaction was all he had. And, he left and made the most of it. So good for him.
Yeah, let's talk about that. It's written in the Observer. Jarrett's WWF contract expired on October 16th, the day before No Mercy, but he came back for one last show to put Chyna over in the IC title match at No Mercy the previous night in Cleveland. Both Jarrett and even the WWF pretty well made Jim Ross, who handles contract negotiations for the WWF, into the scapegoat for Jarrett leaving. Jarrett had signed a 2-year contract with the company at $350,000 per year, selling them on the idea that he was 30 years old with 12 years experience and primed and ready to jump from WCW and be a superstar. They initially pushed him as one, but it didn't work. They tried character after character with him, which never paid off, and in competitive segments, when Raw was close, Jarrett was a ratings liability. Somewhere during this period, Jarrett was pressured, convinced, whatever, to take a pay cut to a $250,000 base, which he obviously resented. Although, with the WWF booming, he was actually online to earn probably even more than his previous $350 base this year.
No doubt.
So let's talk about that. What spurs the renegotiation? Do you recall? I know
he wanted more money. It's like partially ego. He wanted to make more cash, and the opportunity to make more cash was there. And like you said, he was on target to exceed his $350 on a $250,000 guarantee. So, it's just one of those things, man. I think we all made mistakes in that deal. I'm glad at the end of the day, Conrad, that Jeff and I come out as friends and respectful friends. That's important. And so he's doing a good job for AEW. In every little role that he's been selected to participate in has been a nice performance, no doubt. So anyway, it was regretful. A lot of stress during that time. This coming off more stress. It was horrible.
We know that it's all water under the bridge now, but do you recall why you were asked to go ask Jeff to take a pay cut from $350 to $250? Seemingly the business has never been hotter. You're setting records everywhere you go, but he's asked to take a pay cut. Was anybody else asked to take a pay cut? Can you tell us anything about this?
I think so. I think there were others. I can't remember who they were, but to pare back a little bit and to downsize just to prepare for the eventuality that things will not always be great. And so that's kind of what we had there. And that was Vince's call. Of course, I get to be the messenger.
Right.
But I didn't create the scenario. I created the process on McMahon's orders. And Jeff was just caught there. He that's a good living. Especially when you don't have any ceiling. You can make as much as you want. How often can you work? Are you healthy? Are you productive? he could do all those things. So it was inevitable to me that Jeff was going to far exceed his downside guarantee as long as we kept him booked. And I had every intention to keep Jeff booked. The issue was always, he wanted to work with Austin because that was the way to get over. And Austin was not interested in working with Jeff for whatever reason. And I don't really know the reason. But Steve didn't want to work with Jeff, and that made it awkward, as I said earlier.
It probably doesn't get any less awkward when Steve starts a real life relationship with Deborah, who's going to, of course, be the second for Jeff Jarrett. It just continues to twist and get more tangled. I'm going to go back to it again because I want to remind everybody the company is about to go public. So I'm wondering, when you go to Jeff earlier in the year and ask him to take that pay cut, doesn't it also stand to reason that perhaps there were bankers or an initiative internally that, hey, we got to get these budgets in line. And so if we can trim 50 grand here and 100 grand there and that sort of thing, we can hit a number for our IPO.
Yeah, absolutely. All about the math.
Yeah.
And the rules of engagement. So, because nobody knew how much the IPO was going to deliver. Pardon me. I mentioned earlier, it created $160 million in new cash. That's a lot of money. A lot of money for a wrestling company. Are you kidding? So, I think it had a lot to do with the bean counters. Because I know that Jeff was not the only person that was asked to take a decrease in guarantee. And of course, if you're working and you're doing your work as you should, then you're going to be fine. So, but it's an ego issue, the uncertainty, am I going to make more? Am I going to make less? All those type of things. So it was an interesting time. And, I wish it had worked out differently because there were years there that I didn't even talk to Jeff, and that's silly.
Yeah.
No reason for that. And, but we did it and we got through it. And when I work, I see him at AEW TV, and it's always a nice conversation and shoot the shit type thing. So we got whole again. So I'm happy about that.
It's written in the Torch that the company had offered Jarrett basically the same deal he signed 2 years prior. No raise, even though the business is in another stratosphere from where it was 2 years prior.
Yeah.
And Wade would say that alone could have been a sign the company didn't believe in his worth to the company. Jim Ross, who is Steve Austin's close ally, didn't work especially hard to retain Jarrett. Vince McMahon, understandably distracted by front office departures and his tour of the West Coast to pitch the IPO, left the contract negotiations in Ross's hands. Ross's negotiations came down to chasing Jarrett out of the arena door on Tuesday last week after SmackDown, yelling to Jarrett, "So are you staying or going?" Jarrett let Ross know he wasn't impressed with his negotiating style. Ross said he was distracted by other things and had forgotten to talk to Jeff earlier in the week. And within 48 hours, Jeff came to a verbal agreement with WCW. When word began to spread from WCW that Jarrett was a signature away from jumping, Vince McMahon made a strong effort to change Jeff's mind. McMahon let Ross know he wasn't happy that the situation had gotten to the point of no return without consulting him. Ross apparently never went to McMahon to say Jarrett wasn't happy with the first contract offer. McMahon, extremely upset with Ross, told Ross to fix the situation. Ross then tried to reach Jarrett on Thursday, but Jarrett didn't return his calls. Jarrett told the front office he would only talk to McMahon, and Jarrett and McMahon finally spoke on Thursday, at which point McMahon told Jarrett that Ross had dropped the ball and he really wanted him to stay in the WWF. The offer was upped. Stock options were thrown in. But Jarrett told McMahon he already had a verbal agreement with WCW that he felt comfortable with. So Jarrett and McMahon have a cordial conversation, and it even reads on the website on Friday, due to a contract dispute between JR and Jeff, Jarrett will be leaving the WWF for WCW, although his contract with WWF expires this Saturday. He will be at No Mercy on Sunday, which is a testament to the kind of human being Jeff Jarrett is.
Oh my God. Stop it. Fuck.
It's crazy, isn't it? That's on the website? My God.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous, Conrad. Hey, I was the scapegoat in that whole situation.
Yes.
and some of it, honestly, was my fault. And I didn't pursue Jeff as fervently as some would expect. That may just have been on me. The money he wanted and the terms and all that stuff was commensurate with a top guy. I didn't perceive Jeff at that time a top guy for a WWE. And I may have made another mistake. This job is not foolproof. There's a lot of decisions made on the run, and you've got a boss that is, unique cat. He changed his mind. I've had that happen a lot of times. That talk we had the other day about so-and-so? Yeah. Forget what we talked about. I don't want him. Okay. So that kind of shit happens a lot. So you just had to regroup. I thought you said I was going to get this. Well, at that time, if you had accepted the offer, that's what you would get. But you didn't.
Wow.
So, but I fully take my share of the blame for that whole ordeal. It was a train wreck, and it was unnecessary a train wreck. So, but we got through it. It was not good for the locker room. So, anyway.
Let me ask you about this. It's written here. There's some thought that this is internal, that you did intentionally as little as possible to re-sign Jarrett. Quote, the perception of Ross in the WWF is that he'll do anything to please Austin, knowing that as long as he has Austin's support, he's on solid ground in the WWF. Ross may have wanted to do a favor for Austin by intentionally dropping the ball on the Jarrett negotiations. Like, that just feels like that's a little silly. That's not JR at all.
Who wrote this?
Well, it's speculation that was in the Torch at the time.
Oh yeah. Wade's always been a little frisky. So I don't know, Connie. It was just one of those scenarios where I did drop the ball, but it wasn't a preconceived plan to supplement Jeff and eliminate Jeff from the roster. Did you think Jeff Jarrett at that time was a top hand?
No, I didn't think you guys had positioned him there. I did think he had a lot of momentum with the Intercontinental title, and he was doing an angle where he's, hitting ladies with guitars and putting them in figure fours. I did feel like he was a good character, but did I feel like he was at the Undertaker Stone Cold level? No, not yet. He had not been positioned that way.
That was the same scenario I had with Joni. She wanted Austin pay. Specifically said, I think I should be making as much as Steve. Well, you're not going to make that much. But she made 6 figures or 7 figures. She was making over $1 million a year because of the structure of the pay was very talent friendly. She got a great guarantee, and then she got more money for being booked and how productive the houses were, et cetera, et cetera. So, I don't know. A lot of people won in this deal. A lot of people were making a lot of money at this time. But they were making it basically on the overrun, the additional monies that you made above and beyond your guarantee that you received at the time you earned it. There was this one time where we had a policy where the talent could capture that money at the end of their term. And then Vince changed that to, if they want it, give it to them, which I thought was a good idea. You make the money, get it to the talents. Let them make the decision if they want to add a new carport on their house or want to buy another Rolex or pay for their girlfriend's boobs, things like that I dealt with. So why not?
I want to talk to you a little bit about because I never heard this before we started doing research for this particular episode, but it's written in the Torch that allegedly Jeff Jarrett tells Vince, I'm not coming back to the company as long as JR works here. And allegedly in person, he cut a promo on you in front of a number of other people where he's accusing you of intentionally sabotaging his contract just to kiss up to Austin. He's clearly frustrated. and he's letting it all out. Do you remember an ugly in-person incident between the two of you at the show?
Yeah, disrespectful, unprofessional, don't need an audience, but that's the old wrestling way. So he cut his promo on me, and I just listened. It's not a place to start the debate.
Yeah.
In that environment. So, but it was unnecessary. It was unnecessary. And I don't know how much it affected my relationship with the roster that I built. Most of those guys were, they were friendly. I'd helped them. They were making good money. And that's what it's all about in wrestling, the cash. The point, simple, end of story, the cash. Well, don't you want to have a happy locker room? Don't you want the boys to get along? It's wrestling, you idiot. They're always going to be looking to move up the ladder. And I don't blame them. That's how they get paid, moving up the ladder and contributing more and being a better earner than not.
So allegedly after this ugly public incident backstage between you and Jeff Jarrett, well, we get one with Road Dogg cutting a promo on Bruce Pritchard. And he's basically saying, hey, you and JR are Vince's only confidants at the expense of the company. And I'm going to make your life miserable as long as you guys are in power until you release me. I mean, he's trying to stand up for his friend here. There are some hurt feelings, at least, that have trickled down from Jeff Jarrett to the real life Brian James, who's making a mint here as the Road Dogg.
He was making $1 million a year.
Yeah.
And you're bitching because your friend didn't get what he wanted. I'd say get over it, move on, save your money. You're making a lot of it, and you've never made this kind of money before in your life. Nobody in your family has made this kind of money in their life. So count your blessings and save your fucking money. And Brian and I got past that too. Brian and I are friends of today.
Absolutely. I
like Brian. He's entertaining. He's smart. He's good for a wrestling company's office. Smart. He's a smart guy. I like Brian. I didn't like him that day when he undressed Bruce, but that's the way it goes sometimes in wrestling.
We should also mention, just context is king. There's a lot going on in Jeff Jarrett's life. His wife, Jill, is at home dying of cancer.
Yeah.
And he's got young kids, and now he's trying to make as much money as he can. And he's taking a pay cut despite the company being hotter than ever. I'm sure he feels a certain type of way about that, and he feels backed in. And it's not like this is the first time he's had issues with Vince or creative. I mean, he walked out in 95. And of course, the Jeff Jarrett we talk to these days on My World, well, that's a different human being. I mean, this was, I can't believe it's real, 25 years ago. So
Yeah.
You're talking about a guy who's in a totally different place in his life. He calls it BS Jeff, before sobriety Jeff. The pressure that must be on you. And of course you now, given everything that's happened in your life, to think, with the benefit of hindsight, man, if Jill was at home with cancer, and now you can imagine, man, if Jan was at home with cancer, it changes everything in the way you approach everything anyway. Right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely. And, that was interesting. 25 years ago, people are going to wonder, JR over the Jeff Jarrett thing. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm not going to carry a grudge for 25 fucking years. That's stupid. That's just not the way to live your life. So that's kind of what I've done. I forgive and forget, and you move on, and it's just part of the damn job. And some parts of the job of being head of talent relations was not pleasant.
Well, something that is pleasant is Magic Spoon. As a kid, we all used to wake up and get a big bowl of cereal and plop down for some cartoons or Saturday morning wrestling. But then as adults, we realized, man, we don't need all that sugar first thing in the morning. We need protein. And that's where Magic Spoon can hook you up. It tastes just like your childhood favorites, but with a ton of protein. Every serving of Magic Spoon cereal has 13 grams of protein, 0 grams of sugar, and just 4 grams of net carbs, so you can feel good about what you're eating. The most popular flavors are fruity and cocoa, but there's so many more. But I've got big news. If you're already a Magic Spoon fan, they've turned their super popular cereal into high protein treats. That's right. Magic Spoon's brand new treats are crispy, crunchy, and airy. And
I had one last night, Conrad, not to interrupt you intentionally, but I had that was my snack last night. No sugar. I'm diabetic too, so I got to watch my sugar intake. And Magic Spoon is the recipe for me. It works. They're nice little treats, as Jan used to call them. Have you had your treat tonight? No. Why don't you go make me something? It would have plenty of sugar in it, unfortunately. So the Magic Spoons, it is magic, and it tastes good. You know, sometimes you get these products and you think, God damn, they taste like cardboard. This is not good. But I had a chocolate one last night, little
it's
bar.
The best.
It's awesome. And I got a whole shipment from those folks. They're very kind, they're very nice, and they make a real good product. So if you want to watch your sugar intake and eat healthier, this is a good option. Really, really good option.
Check it out. You're going to love it because here's the deal. It's an easy way to get 12 grams of protein on the go. And for the first time ever, Magic Spoon treats are now available in grocery stores. They've got delicious flavors like marshmallow and chocolatey peanut butter. They've also got blueberry muffin, but my hands down favorite is double chocolate. You heard JR mentioning it before.
Yeah.
I double dog dare you to try it. It doesn't taste like something that should be good for you to eat. It doesn't taste like something that has all this protein and no sugar. It tastes like a just damn most delicious dessert you ever had. Go out of your way to try it. I'm telling you, you're going to love it. Get $5 off your next order at magicspoon.com/JR, or just look for Magic Spoon on Amazon or in your nearest grocery store. That's magicspoon.com/JR for $5 off. Magic Spoon. Hold on to the dream.
Good decision, folks. I promise you, you're going to love it. And you can pick your spots. I haven't had breakfast yet today, but my breakfast will revolve around Magic Spoon cereal because it's healthy and it's good.
Check it out. You'll be glad you did. We got the link in our description today for today's episode as well. Hey, Jim, I wanted to ask you, there's been lots of rumor and innuendo that's out there about how this whole Jeff Jarrett held up Vince McMahon story goes.
Yeah.
And, we've heard everybody else talk about it. I don't know how much detail we've heard from your side. So I wanted to give you an opportunity to, as best you can recall, I think the story goes, Jeff essentially just wanted to make sure that he was taken care of on all of the trailing pay-per-views and house shows and royalties. Maybe there was some concern that when he jumped ship, he won't be dealt with fairly. He'd like to just settle up right now for the work he had been done. That was the narrative that has been positioned. And It's also been said that he wasn't so excited to accept a WWF check. He would like for the cash to come from the gate proceeds from the building. So there's a little bit of third party. Maybe it's wrestler paranoia.
Was that necessary?
I don't think so in hindsight. No.
So, I don't either. Now, I know I'm the bad guy in this. And I take full responsibility. I'm a big man and I got big shoulders and, I don't know what else I could have done. I could have done a lot of things better. I've admitted that. And my relationship with Austin and his relationship with Jarrett obviously had to play a role in the 09 yards. I learned a long time ago, you keep your top guys happy. And that was very important in my role. And who was the bigger top guy than Stone Cold? And so I did go out of my way to, and Steve was not an easy manage. He was challenging because, even to me, he had questioned the booking at times and so forth. I remember once, he had the same issue with Mark Merrow. He didn't want to work with Mark Merrow. He didn't think Mark Merrow was up to speed, and Steve wasn't ready in that time of his career to make guys in that respect. He wanted them made before he got them, so they could go out and have a good match and tell a good story. So it was an awkward time, no doubt. Guys are paranoid. They're making more money than they ever made in their life. I thought that was pretty important as far as my job is concerned. And so I always thought it was about the money. And it really is. I ain't going to bullshit myself. But I think there's the strategy issues that Jeff had that I know he didn't want to have. and that it wasn't on his radar, but he made some mistakes in that regard. I've admitted my mistakes. I've made several of them in that particular matter. But I guess what I'm saying is that there was nobody in the front office that was campaigning. That's what I did there, campaigning for Jeff's success. It just, people saw what I saw. He's a very, very good talent, but he's not a top guy at that time. And so that's kind of where we took it from there and moved on. There's where we had a big difference of opinion. And what do? You got a difference of opinion. So we adapt, but Jeff's financial issues with Conrad were not going to be an issue. He's going to far exceed his downside guarantee. And, but that wasn't good enough.
Let me ask you a little bit about, because you've said it a few times, you didn't perceive Jeff Jarrett to be a top guy at that time.
Right.
And this conversation exists sort of inside the wrestling business. I know a few years ago, several at this point, Ryback was pretty vocal on social media about, his perception of that it takes the entire group of guys. It's not like some are necessarily stars and others aren't. Like, they work together to create these stories. When you're saying you didn't perceive Jeff to be a top guy, do you mean as a heel or a baby face? Because I think he was awfully hateable. I could see how you would say he wasn't a top baby face. I don't think anybody would argue that, but he had credibility as a heel to me, as a top guy.
All right. Well, if he had credibility, it would have been as a heel.
Yeah.
Without question. It's just the perception was that he's not at that level. And that doesn't mean it's right. It just means that's what the general consensus was in McMahon's office. So,
how much of that, right or wrong, do you think is because he was second generation? I ask because I do think there's a contingent who says, oh, well, here comes Greg Gagne. Oh, here comes Eric Watts. Well, do you think there was a little, oh, here comes Jerry's son for Jeff in that era?
Might have been. And if it happened, it was unnecessary.
Yeah.
You should judge Jeff on Jeff's merits, not on Jerry Jarrett's success.
Right.
That never came into my purview. I understand what you're saying. I understand your point, but that was not an issue. As a matter of fact, if anything, it was an ally, an asset. So it just was unfortunate, Conrad. It's just, I don't know what more I can say. I've admitted my guilt, Your Honor. So hit the gavel, sentence me, and let's move on.
Let's move on. Let's talk about Bill Banks. He's in his early 20s here, and he's been working with Russo on the WWF magazine. He's helped Russo with some scripting, and he's going to leave the WWF for WCW too. In addition to that, Matt Miller, who was handling third-party bookings for the WWF and so forth, he's going to be taking a job for arena management at the Gund Arena in Cleveland. And right. Bob Mitchell, who's helped grow the company's website quite a bit, he's leaving for another media position. I find all these departures very curious, Jim. Like, we're about to go public. It seems to reason to me that everybody who sticks around is going to make more money. Why not see what that looks like before you jump ship?
Absolutely, Conrad. You're absolutely right. I don't understand the logic of that thinking. You wait a week.
Yeah.
Wait 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And go from there. So it was a strange time. People were making moves that I believe to this day, and I think it's proved it out, were ill-advised. So I don't know. I didn't understand the logic of some of those situations. Pardon me. Or maybe it was just the fact that, guys just thought that they may have been influenced, some of those guys, by their better halves. Well, because sometimes the guys understand, who are living it daily, understand that be patient and let's see how this thing works. Vince took care of his key people. A lot of people got stock. A lot of people did. Kevin Dunn and I got the most. that made us both financially comfortable. But that was Vince's decision. Hell, I had no idea what it was, and I didn't know what it meant. You got these options, and they're going to vest, and hell, I didn't own any stock. That wasn't my area of expertise. So, but I knew that the potential for a windfall of cash existed. It did, and I got that windfall of cash on more than one occasion, and that was always a fun time of the year. It's like Christmas, it's the stock reallocation and all that stuff. So it was a good time to be in WWF at that point in time. A really good time for guys like me.
It's interesting to see all these shakeups. You're going to have a guy who was working as a publicist named Jay. He's going to be let go for insubordination. But it becomes real nut cutting time for guys like Bill Banks because they're asked to sign what Vince is calling a loyalty pledge. The idea is if you leave here for any reason, you won't go work for Time Warner or WCW for at least a year. Bill Banks does not want to sign that. And so he leaves. He goes to WCW. And Terry Taylor, he doesn't want to sign it either. And when he's pressed about it, he's explaining, hey man, I don't want to work in anywhere else but professional wrestling. So if I sign this, then it means if I ever leave here, I have no leverage. I can't go earn a living anywhere else. I've got to go get a quote unquote real job. I don't want to do that. So I don't want to leave the WWF, but I also don't want to sign a document saying I won't go to WCW for a year. What'd you think of this loyalty pledge? Is this Vince reaching a little bit? He's winning. Why do this?
I wasn't high on it.
Yeah.
I wasn't high. I thought it created a bad karma. It slowed down the process that some talents and some individuals had, but I wasn't for it. But that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. So somebody's thinking, oh, JR didn't have any power. I had plenty of power, but I knew what hill to die on. And he was Vince when he starts doing all these little proclamations and all these things. That was a tough one to get past. Luckily, I didn't have to deal with much of that. It wasn't a talent thing. It was more of a corporate scenario. And I thought Vince kind of overreacted in that moment.
We got to talk a little bit about Chris Jericho. He's making a lot of news here. He would actually go on his blog and write that he doesn't think he's done well in WWE. He's disappointed with his performance. And the Observer would even say it's at least been pretty well decreed, at least temporarily, that Jericho is slated for a mid-card role. They're disappointed in his work. There have been a lot of excuses thrown around as to why Jericho isn't working out like they'd expected. 90% of them are what I would call old schoolism, but the answer is simple. Look at how he's been programmed in the ring from day one. If you're programmed as one of the guys, you become just another one of the guys, which is the slot he's being taken in. He didn't beat Road Dogg or X-Pac clean in major matches, and developing a mid-card guy, results don't matter, but in developing a top-of-the-card superstar, they have to beat everyone but other top-of-the-card superstars. Hughes hurt a lot, presumably with the exception of Road Dogg's match in England. He hasn't had a match in the caliber of the matches he used to have in WCW, but by and large, there's also a minor part of the perception to the audience. You know, we talked a little bit about the way you felt like JR, or from JR's perspective, the office didn't perceive Jarrett to be a top guy at this point. It sounds like they didn't really feel that way about Jericho just yet either. Fair to say?
Yeah, fair to say. He was too short.
Okay.
That's what you get. Oh, he's awful small. He's got Vince told me one time Jericho had a feminine walk to the ring.
Oh, wow.
I'd never envisioned that assessment. I didn't feel it. I didn't see it. Pardon me. However, you just have to ride with those talents. One of the reasons that Jericho wasn't as successful as we wanted in the beginning, it's hard to come down from being introduced and interrupting The Rock. So there's where your angle was, and it didn't play out. And that's not good. You shoot a big angle, you introduce a guy, Yeah, the clock, the new, no, it's not new generation, but yeah, the clock involved in this thing, and it was a huge entrance, and you got a massive pop. It was very popular at the time, but it was between Jericho and The Rock. And the rock aspect of this conversation is extremely important. How do you follow that, Conrad? How do you follow the rock? There's anything else you do, except maybe with Austin, is going to be perceived as a letdown. So, but that's, we should have followed up with Jericho and the Rock with a nice several week program, but we did not do that. I can't tell you why. It's Vince's decision. And it may have been something the Rock said. The Rock said, I don't want to work with him. He's too small. I don't know that to be true, but we did follow up on it, and that was a missed opportunity.
I wanted to ask you a little bit about some developmental territories here. Bert Prentice's Music City Wrestling. It's being written about in the Observer like it might become a developmental territory, much like Les Thatcher's Heartland Wrestling shows were. It never really happens for Bert. What was the company's official relationship with Bert, and why didn't it become more of a developmental system?
It was basically through Lawler. Jerry Lawler and Bert were in the same geographical vicinity. They had a relationship, but I don't know that we were ever totally committed or serious about that his company becoming a developmental area. We soon found out that most of these companies that we worked with had really poor infrastructure, and that's why they were borderlining on failure. And so we found that with everybody. It was just, I think they thought WWF was going to come in and solve all their problems with their money, but you still got to execute it on the work site. So it just wasn't a time or place for Bert's company for us.
Well, the time or place for Blue Chew is now. Blue Chew is an online service that delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra, Cialis, and Levitra, but at a fraction of the cost and in a chewable form. The process is super simple. You'll sign up at BlueChew.com. You'll consult with one of their licensed medical providers. And once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. Blue Chew's tablets are made here in the USA, prepared and shipped directly to your door. And the best part, it's all done online. That means no visits to the doctor's office, no awkward conversation, no waiting in line at the pharmacy. You can take them anytime, day or night. So plan ahead or be ready whenever an opportunity arises. Blue Chew wants you to have the confidence to perform at your best. So discover your options at BlueChew.com. And we've got a special deal for our listeners. Try Blue Chew free when you use our promo code JR at checkout. Just pay the $5 shipping. That's BlueChew.com. The promo code is JR to receive your first month free. Visit BlueChew.com for more details and important safety information. And we thank Blue Chew for sponsoring today's podcast. All right, so Jim, let's get back to the pay-per-view. We're finally here. No Mercy 1999. If you're going to watch one retro pay-per-view, go make it this one. What an incredible show this is. There's a sellout crowd. 18,752 fans are here. It's one of the strongest pay-per-views of the year, according to Dave Meltzer. And he says it probably includes the best American match of the year. All told, there's $478,000 at the gate, 17,430 paying fans, another $130,000 in merch. You guys are hot. And I'm sure after all the backstage shenanigans, you were excited to just be at the desk and done with your day job, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It was invigorating to see the crowd in mass as we did. Yeah, it was time to get out of the meetings and the memos and the phone calls and the pointing the finger of blame at everything that was not totally positive in the eyes of some. So yeah, it was a relief, man. That's my safe place. That's where I had the most fun and enjoyed my contributions the most. So it didn't come any too soon, I can tell you that. I was glad to get to Cleveland. And ironically, Matt Miller, I think, who who we talked about earlier, longtime WWE employee, good guy too.
Yeah.
He got a job, as you said, in the gun arena. So we saw Matt there early on. It was kind of cool.
Let's talk about the card. We got The Godfather opening up with Midian. They're going to go a quarter star. Not a lot of heat in the match, but you got these crazy characters, and that's what the WWF is all about here. Godfather gets the win, 7.5 minutes. This is a pickup or a follow-up from what happened on SmackDown the prior week. So not a long-term storytelling sort of deal, but you didn't really need that with the Godfather ever. Next up, something interesting. Fabulous Moolah becomes the oldest recorded champion in the WWF's history. She's 72 years old here when she beats Ivory in 3 minutes and 1 second to capture the women's title, a title she first won back in 1956. That's a year before anybody on this card is even born. It's pretty crazy. Of course, It wasn't a great match, but it was a spectacle. Thankfully, we've evolved women's wrestling a little bit, but how much fun was Fabulous Moolah having with one last run, if you will?
She was having a blast. I don't think she was having more fun than Mae Young. Mae had a great time. Mae took a lot of dangerous bumps because she was crazy and tough and wanted to prove it every single TV. In the movie Queen of the Ring, which I was executive producer of, the one that we went to the premiere a couple of weeks ago, her character was very prevalent. She followed Mildred Burke, the breadwinner, the Hulk Hogan of the time, around like a puppy, because Mae was the lieutenant in that locker room. Even then, in the 50s and all that, Mae was a badass, and you never heard too many rows with shoot fights because everybody knew that Mae was there to intervene if necessary. But they were quite the pair to draw to, no doubt about it. Two historic characters. I'm glad I got to go through that era with them. And they never turned down an assignment, Conrad. They never turned down a booking. There was nothing, when somebody said that they're going to have the Dudleys power bomb Mae through a table, I thought, well, that ain't going to happen because it's just silly. She's in her 70s, I think, at that time. So, but Mae's a great character. And in Queen of the Ring, which will be out in theaters soon, she had a real good role. And it worked out real well. She didn't talk a lot, but she had a real good role on the screen. So I encourage anybody that when it comes in your area to check out Queen of the Ring. It's a family movie in more ways than one. For a woman to survive in a man's world, when all the men were congregating and trying to come up with a plan to, submerge the ship of Mildred Burke, it's a great story. Great story. So anyway, I got off the track, but Mae reminded me of that. Her role in the movie was crucial, and she did a great job. So if you see a little blonde-headed woman in the movie, you're going to know that's Mae Young's character.
Let's talk a little bit about the next match, because this is a match you don't expect. Bob and Crash Holly are going to get a win over the New Age Outlaws by DQ in just over 10 minutes. And Meltzer loved it. He says a lot better than most WWF undercard matches. Everyone had their working shoes on, and Bob Holly was very impressive, including throwing a perfectly timed high drop kick. I mean, the fans are really into the New Age Outlaws. I mean, even when Road Dogg is doing his whole doggy style pump handle slam thing, the crazy fans are just going bananas here. This is a really fun match, and it's rare that you really saw that from the New Age Outlaws because it wasn't required. Like, people wanted to hear Road Dogg's rap and see Billy Gunn crotch chop, and they could lean on their character work, but here they actually have a pretty kick-ass tag match. When you asked them to go, they could go. This was fun, man. I don't think a lot of people would have assumed New Age Outlaws in the Hollies was awesome, but it was.
Well, they all liked each other pretty well. You know, Bob had a lot of respect, tough guy, old pro, veteran. So it was the timing was good. So yeah, they had a real good match, and I think DX was really the Road Dogg and Billy Gunn were really over. They could taken dumps in the ring and people would have cheered.
Well, they weren't taking a dump in the ring on the next one. This is the more controversial match we've been waiting on. Chyna is going to become the Intercontinental Champion. That's a real thing. She beats Jeff Jarrett here in a good housekeeping match. They go 8 minutes and 37 seconds. And Meltzer would say, Jarrett did a hell of a job in his final appearance. This is a fun story and a fun match because they had already put it out on the website that he's finishing up. So they do like a false finish here where it looks like Jeff Jarrett has retained and he's leaving. Of course, Teddy Long restarts the match. And now we've got the guitar making an appearance. I don't know if it's technically a household appliance, but maybe it is. I mean, what a performance by Jeff Jarrett. If you're looking for him to go out here and show ass and be covered in flour and eggs and lose the Intercontinental title and put over a woman for the belt and all those things were controversial back then, he did it all. He earned his money that night, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. He had a good night and he did business. He did business and I respect him for that.
Yeah.
To this very day, 25 years later, Conrad, I respect Jeff Jarrett for his performance that night, sucking it up and doing the right thing. How we got there was a rocky road, but once we arrived at our destination, Jeff and Chyna delivered. And I always appreciate that. That was a big moment for Joni. That gave her some impetus to ask for $1 million a year guarantee, which she didn't get, but nonetheless, that's what she asked for. That was a happy moment for her with a troubled career and some inner demons and so forth. She had that big smile on her face. And I think everybody felt pretty good for Joni.
You know, with the benefit of hindsight, I sure do wish that Joni was with us now. I mean, in an alternate universe on the 25th anniversary, how cool would it have been to have, Jeff and Chyna and yourself all just discuss. This was a crazy moment in wrestling. I mean, yes, it was a bad day for you and your reign as head of talent relations. And it was probably a regrettable decision for Jeff with the benefit of knowing what's going to happen in 2001. I mean, just 2 years after this, there ain't no WCW. I mean, WCW is not long for this world.
Right.
And this is probably the high watermark for Chyna. I mean, at this time, for a lady holding the Intercontinental Champion just seemed like a crazy idea. She made real wrestling history. You guys were sort of all forever tied to that moment, and to know that she's not here on the 25th anniversary, that's a downer, man.
Yeah. It was a happy moment for Joni. I look back at it and ear to ear smile.
Yes.
Felt complete and talents deserve that. She went through hell to get to where she was in that spot. So, it would have been great if Joni was here. She was a nice person. I babysat her for a long time when she was trying to decide to leave. And she had financial demands that were unreasonable in the eyes of everybody involved in the decision. So, but she was hung up on that Austin number. It's funny how Austin is a catalyst in a lot of these controversial things. But as you look back at it and figure out why, it's pretty easy. He was a target. He was the guy everybody wanted to see and wanted to be like. And his earnings were even more desirable. So, but that's Cowboy taught me a long time ago. You think Bill Watts had an easy time managing the Junkyard Dog and his cocaine habit and his drinking? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But we did all we could to keep Dog happy and content. Thank God for Pee Wee Anderson, who was Dog's driver and traveling partner, and carried around a huge bag of quarters so they could feed the concession machines at the hotels, because Dog goes off his diet, shall we say. But Bill had to go. He bought him a car, and he eventually monies. He forgave debts. And so Bill took good care of the dog, which wasn't easy. I tried to take good care of Stone Cold, but it wasn't easy. So I think that just goes with the territory.
We got to remind everybody, this is a loaded card, one of the better shows of the year. Godfather and Midian only got a quarter star. Fabulous Moolah and Ivory got a -1 star. Wade and Dave really liked the Hollies and the New Age Outlaws. Dave gave it 2 3/4. China and Jeff Jarrett, 3 1/4 stars. And now it falls off a bit of a cliff, not for lack of trying. It's Rock and Bulldog, and they just had no chemistry. This is unfortunately near the end of Bulldog's big time wrestling career. They go 7 minutes and 20 seconds. Obviously The Rock has a ton of momentum. He's a huge star. He's on the way up in a major way. Bulldog, we can't say the same for. I mean, at this point, has his body just sort of given up on him, do you think?
I think it has, and I think he knew it.
Yeah.
I think that's what concerned him. I'm speculating that, Davey, who had made really good money in WWF, just didn't have he didn't have the financial portfolio that he wished he would have had. Sometimes the guys look back and they panic because they've had these good years, but they haven't saved any cash. So that may have been an issue in this matter. But Davey hit a plateau, and it didn't click. The fire kind of gone out, it seemed like. So, he never was able to reclaim the fame and the notoriety that he had with Bulldog, with Billington. They were perfect together. They were great. Absolutely great. So it's good. I try to keep up with Bulldog's son online and keep track of how he's doing. Good kid. I've known him since he was a little boy. I wish that at times that I've seen different roles in AEW that probably would have fit him pretty well.
Hell yeah.
Big athletic son of a gun, good kid, good looking, has a lot of product knowledge, but it's just never, the ties didn't bind. We just never got a chance to make that happen. But good kid, good mom, good family. But I think it was challenging for Davey toward the end that he looked back and didn't have what he thought he should have had as far as savings and things of that nature. That's only that's an educated guess from me. I don't know that to be all factual, but it would make sense that it would be, there's some logic or justice in what I'm saying. But Davey had issues, and he seemed to be tied more to drugs than he was to the passion for the business during that time.
Let's talk about the next match. This is the one you got to go out of your way to see. Matt and Jeff Hardy are going to win a ladder match over Edge and Christian. It goes 16 minutes and 30 seconds. Dave gives it 4.5 stars. He called it a must-see match because any of these guys make it to the top, it'll be remembered as their first great match. Gangrel was booted out early. They set up 2 ladders instead of 1, and the ladders appeared lighter than the previous ladders used. So some of the ladder spots didn't hurt as much as maybe they did in previous matches. It was more of a collection of spots as opposed to a match. But the fans loved it once they realized the risk the guys were going to take to entertain them. The crowd reaction was more to an exhibition of stunts as opposed to the drama of a wrestling match. All 4 men climb the 2 ladders for the climax spot. As they're fighting on both ladders, one ladder tips over with Christian falling off and crotching himself, and Jeff catching his throat on the top rope. The other ladder tipped over similarly, with Edge catching his throat on the top and Matt landing on his stomach on the top rope and going to the floor. They slowly started climbing again. 1 ladder went down and 3 of the 4 guys went down. Jeff had to jump from the falling ladder to the one left standing. There's only 1 guy left, and he grabs the bag of money to win. They celebrate backstage with their new manager, Terry Runnels. The fans give this match a standing ovation. I mean, this is one of the craziest matches in history. I think a lot of people forget. I believe this was the TIT Invitational. something like that. Everybody's after Terry Runnels Management Services. Got to have some fun names for it.
And her boobs.
Well, there you go. We're going to hit people over the head with it. But this is a star-making performance to the point where the next day on Raw, they get another standing ovation. Not just one that night, but the next day.
Yeah, that's important to point out because that just doesn't happen.
Yes.
Just doesn't happen. So hats off to those dudes. They had a spotlight and they took advantage of it. They delivered in a big way that night in Cleveland. And I thought it was kind of heartwarming. I don't think I'd ever seen a 2-night standing ovation.
Right.
And I can't recall anyway. So on Monday when they came out and got that ovation that they did, it was very heartwarming to me because, I'd hired all those guys and they didn't start out as stars. They earned their way up the ladder and, but nobody's bitching at me for that. So they can figure out something else to bitch about, I guess.
When you look back with the benefit of hindsight, do you think this is maybe even a more important moment in wrestling history than we realized? I mean, here's what I mean. It's written in the Observer here. It was more a collection of spots as opposed to a match. And the fans loved it because they realized the risks the guys were taking to entertain them. The crowd reaction was more to an exhibition of stunts as opposed to the drama of a wrestling match. I think you could point to this match, this tag match with the Hardys and Edge and Christian at No Mercy 99 and say, that might be the moment where it all changed. I mean, that wrestling that we saw in that match, that could be appearing on Dynamite, on Rampage, on Collision, on Raw, on SmackDown, at Crown Jewel. It was that is what wrestling became, right?
Yeah. Attraction driven.
Yes.
It was an attraction and it wasn't about, chain wrestling and things of that nature. It was an attraction. Those guys did what they needed to do to get the match over. Did they get the match over? 2 standing ovations later, I'd say absolutely.
It's interesting to look back at this match and think that might be where it all changed. I'm going to encourage you, if you're going to watch one show, certainly watch No Mercy 99 this week, but one match, go watch that tag match. It's unbelievable. And to think it happened 25 years ago, so far ahead of its time. Speaking of ahead of its time, so is Lumen. Lumen is the world's first handheld metabolic coach. It's a device that measures your metabolism through your breath. And on the app, it lets you know if you're burning fat or carbs, and then it gives you tailored guidance to improve your nutrition, your workouts, your sleep, and even your stress management. All you got to do is breathe into your Lumen first thing in the morning, and you'll know what's going on with your metabolism, whether you're burning mostly fats or carbs. And then Lumen gives you a personalized nutrition plan for that day based on your measurements. You can breathe into your Lumen before and after your workouts and your meals, so you know exactly what's going on in your body in real time. And here's why your metabolism really matters. Think about your metabolism as almost like your body's engine. It's what turns the food you eat into the fuel that keeps you going. And because your metabolism is at the center of everything your body does, optimal metabolic health has a whole bunch of benefits like easier weight management, improved energy levels, better fitness results, better sleep. Lumen's recommendations are designed to improve your pre- and post-workout fueling to give you better performance and recovery, so you can power through your toughest workouts and even add on muscle mass. My wife looks at this and thinks it's like a life hack. And if you want to take control and get on track with your health this holiday season, go right now to lumen.me/grillingjr to get 15% off your Lumen. That's lumen.me/grillingjr for 15% off of your purchase. Lumen makes a great gift too. Thank you, Lumen, for sponsoring today's episode.
Great idea. Great idea to keep track of your situation. If Lumen had been around before I got sick, I would have said, I would have jumped on it.
Yeah.
It's just a common sense idea. Don't overthink it, folks. Check it out. At least check in for an order and see how it works for you, because it may work differently for you than somebody else, but you sure should check it out. It's a great idea from some really smart people.
Totally agree. Go out of your way to just learn more. I'm telling you, when you see the device, you see how small it is, you see how convenient it is, you see how easy it is, you're going to be impressed. That's lumen.me/grillingjr. Match number 7 on the pay-per-view is Val Venus beating Mankind. They go 9 minutes and 26 seconds. He's making sure he gets his book plugged, which is kind of fun. It goes 2.5 stars. And, you know, this is probably one of the high water marks for Val Venus. He's not going to work a lot of cards near the main event, but Mankind, a bona fide star by this point. What did you think on some level, just having the gimmick, the character, a porn star, I mean, you have a glass ceiling for that character, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It can only advance so far up the ladder.
That's it.
I was surprised that Mick put Val over. I didn't call that one. I called the match, but I didn't call the finish. And, but it's strange to me. I just didn't feel it because, you know, all Mick was trying to do is elevate Val. But as you pointed out, the ceiling exists for a male porn star on pro wrestling. There's a ceiling. And I think we touched the ceiling on this match. Because Val never returned to that sort of prominence again. And he was a good hand.
Yeah.
Good hand.
We should also mention that if you go back and you watch this match, you're going to see people distracted, not really watching the in-ring action as much. And that's because a lady in the crowd decided she would share some things. So she took her top off right in the middle of the show. And if you're filled with an arena slam full of dudes, that's going to get some eyeballs.
Yeah, instant reaction.
Yeah.
It was very distracting, to be honest with you. So, but hey, that was the era. That was the attitude. And that's a good example of what was the attitude era. Well, one example I can point out is this. The lady exposing her impressive breasts, and it just caused a huge distraction. That would affect the World Series or something. In my view. So anyway, hey, I want to congratulate Raphael for getting to Game 5. Raphael Morphy, my buddy, our friend, Conrad.
Yeah.
Who we work with forever, starting out in WWE. I can't remember what gambling game Raphael taught me to play. Roulette or something, I'm not sure. But he's been a great ally for me. He's just like a little brother. And so he bought 2 premium suites. I don't know if they were suites or boxes or something elaborate for Game 5. And it looked for a while there that Game 5 was not going to happen. So tonight, Raphael and this little boy will be at the Yankee Stadium watching the playoffs, watching the World Series. And for his sake, I hope the Yankees win. The Yankees win.
Well, by the time everybody listens to this, they know. So we hope you enjoyed Game 5 of the World Series. I do want to mention before the Mankind match, we saw The Rock come out for an interview, and Triple H actually attacks him with a sledgehammer, and Rock has to take a stretcher out of the arena, but he's refusing to go to the hospital. And that sets up match 8. It's X-Pac winning a 4 corners elimination match over Kane, Farouk, and Bradshaw. This is kind of the death spot because it's right before the main event, but they get a little bit of time. 10 minutes and 8 seconds. X-Pac gets the win. And I guess it's kind of a big deal that he finally beats a quote unquote big guy. And then in our main event, it's a no holds barred match with Triple H retaining the WWF title, pinning Stone Cold Steve Austin. Triple H comes out with a sledgehammer. McMahon is trying to take it from him. Helmsley's going to deck him. The idea is we're doing all we can here to establish Triple H as a top guy. And if him punching Vince McMahon doesn't work, I mean, goodness gracious, it's worked for everybody else. Of course, it's a hot start, an intense brawl all over the arena, even starting at the entryway. That's kind of what you expected in this era from Stone Cold. And then it's an excellent main event. It got 4 stars in the Observer. We even see suplexes on the Spanish announcing table. We're wrapping legs around the ring posts. We got big superplexes on a dozen chairs. I mean, there's a lot of craziness that's happening here. And ultimately, Triple H delivers a pedigree to Rock and then pins Austin. And after the match, Austin goes after Triple H, punches him all the way to the back, hits a low blow, and then Chyna grabs Triple H, throws him into a limo, and they drive away. So somehow, some way, Triple H wins. I think a lot of people, when they see this on paper in this era, they think, well, this is going to be a Stone Cold Steve Austin show.
All right.
How about that? We're making a new guy here. Triple H getting a win over Stone Cold in 99. That's a tall order.
Yeah. And it proved to be all true. Triple H became if not the top heel in the company, I don't know who else it would have been. He earned his spot, contrary to all the gossip and the bullshit about, his dating relationship and then subsequently his marriage. The guy earned it, and he was really good at his craft. As we're seeing now, he's really good at his craft. It's a different craft, but you still win or lose, and he's winning a lot more than he's losing with his current job.
I do want to ask you, in this era, and I know that some people may think when you look at it in a vacuum, well, that was questionable. Why would they do that? Austin is hurt bad here to the point where, 1 month later, that's when we're going to do the whole, somebody hit Austin with a car so he can go have neck surgery done. He's going to miss the entire year 2000 here. I mean, he's going to be worse for wear. And we know that we've got to get somebody heated up. Why do you think Triple H was the right guy? Or did you know at this point we're going to lose Steve? Or did you think we're hanging on, but maybe we can keep him together with some duct tape?
Well, we always never counted out Steve as far as the medical stuff was concerned, because we knew he was going to do all he could to endure. But Triple H just earned the spot. I mean, he was the, I don't know who else you would pick out of our roster that was more ready for the spot that Triple H earned than Triple H. So, he earned his spot, and he was really, really good at it. And, I went on a vendetta about him and tried to make him a bigger heel than he was. And there's still people to this very day think that I hate Triple H and he hates me and all that stuff. It's pro wrestling. Our job is to get talent over and to establish their persona. And I thought we did a nice job of establishing Triple H's persona that followed his lead on how all that stuff worked out. So perfect choice. Nobody else really in strong consideration, at least in my view. So well earned, well deserved.
It's fascinating to think that this is going to be Stone Cold's last pay-per-view match for quite a while. He won't make Survivor Series. It was supposed to be a 3-way with The Rock and Triple H and Stone Cold. It doesn't happen. And neck surgery is going to become priority. Let's do some questions, and we'll put a button on this one. Simply Human wants to know, did you sense the tide turning in terms of Rock taking over Austin's popularity by the end of 99? Absolutely,
because we knew Steve was going to be physically limited. He needed to be fixed physically. And so, and who's standing in the wings? We were very lucky. We had The Rock, and having The Rock in your deck of cards was extremely important.
Drew Landry has a question that I'm sure a lot of people who've listened to this show start to finish wanted me to ask, because you said a few times the Office didn't perceive Jeff Jarrett at the time to be a top guy. Drew Landry says, JR, what made Triple H a main eventer? I never saw it, and I still don't. All the things accomplished by Triple H could have been accomplished by a heel Cactus Jack. Thanks in advance. What do you make of the criticism all these years later that Triple H wasn't ever really a top guy?
Oh, it's all because of his marital status and his dating situation. It wasn't based on his work, in my opinion. As I said earlier, Triple H was the only guy that I believe to this very day, all these years later, 25 plus years later, that was ready for this move. And I thought when he got the ball, he carried it very well. He delivered.
Well, somebody else who always delivers is adfreeshows.com. Jim, we recorded today in front of a live studio audience. Want to shout out everybody who came and hung out with us today. Appreciate Coach Rosie and Doug Ritter and Lindsay and Denovius and everybody who's hanging out with us early this morning. But I wanted to mention we've got a brand new initiative at adfreeshows.com. It's an all new women's program called Ladies Night at the Matches. You can check out this and a whole host of other bonus content like Lex Luger's Lex Expressed, like the Godfathers podcast, like Tully Blanchard. What about Memphis Memories with Downtown Bruno? We got Sam Adonis. We got David Crockett. We got Mike Chioda. We got Nick Patrick. We got something for everybody. More than 100,000 hours of bonus content, all available for you now at adfreeshows.com. And if you've been on the fence about trying it, now's your chance. Use our promo code right now, JR25, and you'll get 25% off your first month. That's JR25 at adfreeshows.com. Yes, there's a lot of content, but what you're going to find most of all is it's like a little community. I think you're going to really, really dig it. Check it out. It's adfreeshows.com. Listen, Jim, as folks are listening to this, last night was Fright Night Dynamite with Shelton Benjamin and Swerve Strickland. Denovius Max says, we all know you're very high on Shelton Benjamin, but can you tell us how excited you are to see him with you guys at AEW? Could you see him finally becoming a world champ here?
Well, possibly. Yeah, possibly. He's physically qualified. It's just a matter of how the stories are written and so forth. I'm a big Swerve Strickland fan as well. Those two guys work really hard and are reliable talents. And they bring something special. They bring a uniqueness to the presentation. But Shelton is just, maybe his time is coming. That's all I got to say about that. Maybe I don't have any inside information. I don't have any dirt. But I think that Sheldon could fulfill any role inside the squared circle that we wanted. He's just, and he's a quality human being. You know he's going to be there, and you know you're going to get great athletic effort. And there's very few people that I've ever been around that were as athletic as Shelton Benjamin in the wrestling ring.
Well, one of the biggest stars to come out of this show, No Mercy 99 this week, is Edge, the real life Adam Copeland. We're going to pick up our conversation with him, morphing into the top guy he's become next week here on the show. If you've got questions, we would love to hear from you. Find us on social media, anywhere you enjoy your social. That's easy. It's at JR Grilling on Twitter and Instagram. It's Grilling JR over on Facebook. And of course, your home for all things JR is grillingjr.com. If you haven't already, go hit the subscribe button, turn on the notifications bell. And don't forget, with the holidays right around the corner, the wrestling fan in your life, well, they'd like some autographed JR swag, or they'd love to have some of his Flavortown experiences at jrsbbq.com. It costs nothing to look. Jim, I'm excited, man. The holidays are almost here, and that means we're going to have some good barbecue. We're going to be doing some good grilling. We got some good football, and AEW's next pay-per-view just 3 weeks away. I feel like you're thinking QT Marshall is going to tote an ass whooping thanks to Big Justice. And I mean, the Rizzler, he's really the secret sauce in the whole thing, is he not?
I think so. I just can't wait for the T-shirts to come out. The Rizzler. Give me a break. The Rizzler. All right, whatever.
Whatever, indeed. No Mercy 99 in the books. Stay tuned. AEW coming to your town soon with Full Gear. Tickets on sale now, AEWTIX.com. Or just do what I'm doing. Order the pay-per-view and get those orders in early. I'm ordering on Triller, and I hope you will too. And Jim, I'm looking forward to talking about Adam Copeland next week here on the show.
Yeah, what a star. What a star, and what a good human being. I just love the guy. He's a family man. He's highly skilled, never fails to deliver, never disappoints. And he's worked through some serious ass injuries to accomplish his success. Lifelong fan. We'll talk about that. You know, he grew up in Ontario as a huge wrestling fan, and he's a great student of the game. To sit down and strategize with him and talk to him about stuff is very refreshing. He's just a hell of a guy. And he's the kind of guy that makes the company stronger, no matter if he wrestles every week or not. So I'm looking forward to that show. He's one of my favorite talents of all time, and we'll stress that next week.
Stay tuned and tell your friends about Grilling JR with the voice of professional wrestling, Mr. Jim Ross.
And don't forget about the goddamn Rizzler, will you? Keep the Rizzler in your thoughts and prayers, for God's sakes. He needs it. He wants it. Does he deserve it? Time will tell.
So long, everybody. Hey, it's Conrad Thompson here to tell you a little more about what adfreeshows.com is all about. Get early, ad-free access to more than a dozen of your favorite wrestling podcasts every single week, starting at just $9. That's less than 20 cents an episode each month. And yes, you can listen to them all directly through Apple Podcasts or your regular podcast apps. How easy is that? Ad-Free Shows also has thousands of hours worth of bonus content and docuseries like Title Chase, Eric Fires Back, Conversations with Conrad, and The Insiders. Plus new series like The Book with David Crockett, Monday Mailbags with Mike Chioda and Nick Patrick, and a whole lot more. And you want to talk about early? You can't get any earlier than listening to the shows live. You can be a part of the live studio audience as we record the podcast. Plus, ride shotgun alongside your favorite childhood heroes for live watch-alongs, Q&As, and other interactive experiences every single month. Come on now, see for yourself what thousands of other wrestling fans from around the world have discovered, that adfreeshows.com is the best value in wrestling. Check it out today, and hey, when you do, the first week is completely free. adfreeshows.com.